happy holiday Monday. Happy April Fool's Day. I fooled you, not on purpose, but I'm a couple hours later than I normally would be on a Monday. I hope for those of you that were celebrating this weekend, you had a good Easter weekend and got fed and got some time with friends and family, which is probably the nicest part about getting together. So if you did celebrate, I hope you had a good time and maybe you're recovering with some leftovers out of the fridge today. I haven't done a specific stretching session in quite some time. And today we're talking about some of my favorite stretches that I like to do. And I was kind of struggling this morning when I usually sit, depending on how I'm feeling, I kind of like to roll with the fly on how I'm feeling. And there's so many different types of stretches that you can do. And a lot of it is driven by what's bugging you? What are the issues? Is it the neck? Is it the shoulder blades? Is it the hips? Is it the knees? So, my list got incredibly long before I realized. So today I wanted to cover a little bit of a head to toe thing, but encourage you that if there are regular stretches that you're doing now, everybody's got a few things you do and you're sitting at your desk or whatever it may be. By incorporating some of this stuff, be it seated, be it standing on a plate, you're adding that advantage of increased circulation and lymphatic movement. And whether it's, tension or, you had a bad night's sleep, there's lots of different reasons that we, like to stretch. But it might be a pre or a post workout thing, or maybe there's, some goals that you're working on. You're trying to increase flexibility. Flexibility is a big thing to have as you get older. It really improves the day-to-day tasks, the range of motion, the mobility. So stretching, maybe you're stretching from a performance perspective and maybe you're stretching because you've got chronic issues. Like always, there's always a couple different reasons I like to explore why we're doing what we're doing. So I mentioned in the session notes when I was setting this up to please have a stool handy. I do recognize that many of you, like to use your machine seated, whether that's a choice and you just want to chill or it's a medical necessity. I always like to give you a few options starting on a seated basis and we can progress from there. So for those of you that aren't able to stand or get down on the ground or do these things without being somewhat graceful, you can certainly continue on and do some of the stuff seated that we're going to work through. So we're going to start seated. I would also like to invite questions when we get to the end of this. If any of you are joining me today, please let me know where you're joining me from. And what I'll do at the end of the session, if there's anything in particular that you want to cover off, there's an area you're having trouble getting into, or you need some ideas because you're recovering from something, let me know and we'll go over some examples if the few that I've provided today aren't going to cut it for you. So I just wanted to make sure also it is, just a second. I just want to make sure I'm showing up on the other end. If somebody could let me know if you are if you do see and hear me on the other end, that would be a huge help. And then I know whether we are rocking and rolling for me to walk away, because I certainly can't see you when I'm not at the camera. So just let me know if you're hearing me okay on your end and we'll get started. Today is the 1st of April. And I should also mention that there is a new review contest as well. So I'll make sure I've got the link for that as well for you guys before I get rambling here. Virginia, thank you. Carol. Oh, hi, Carol. How are you? Hello, Sue. Thank you. Stillwater, Minnesota. Sue, you'll relate. We had 1.5 feet of snow here last week, and now it's like a river out front. So it's been an interesting day. I'm going to drop this in the chat window for any of you that have purchased or have reviews yet to do on some of your recent purchases. This is this week's review contest launched yesterday. I believe this will be running for a couple of weeks, this one. There's details if you want to go through the link. Thank you, Robin. Also, okay, I think there's enough of you seeing and hearing me. Let's get some stretching done. So couple of housekeeping things. Yes, I am bare feet. I got a message on that afterwards. Shoes or no shoes on the machine. It's really a personal choice. I started with the medical grades 20 years ago almost on these, and a lot of the training that I got, especially for some of the symptom management, the medical stuff, we were not born with shoes. And there certainly are reasons if you're fearful of falling or you don't have the best mobility, there may be a reason you want to use footwear. But I do want you to, like anything, experiment. Sometimes it's just a personal choice. I personally prefer bare feet. But that being said, if I'm heading out the door and my back's bugging me and I just want to shake for a minute or two, I'll step on it with my winter boots if that's what I'm wearing at the time. So sometimes it depends on why you're using the machine. So if it's a workout and you traditionally like using footwear and that's what you're comfortable with, that's absolutely fine. I like to give the feet equal attention. So by not wearing shoes on the plate, the muscles in the feet, the structure of the feet, the ankles, they have to do their job. Sometimes when you're in footwear, if it's good support, great. But it alleviates your feet from having to do some of its tasks. And if the footwear is improper, you're not doing yourself any favors, whether it's the machine or wearing them long term. So starting out, I do all my sessions in oscillating movement, which is the side to side. That is the most natural movement that mimics how we walk. That's where all the research lays. And Life Pros models all offer oscillating. So today I'm working on the Waver Mini. And I've got a few little tools that I'm going to incorporate into some of these stretches. But to start, if you're stiff, if you've been seated, if you've been doing nothing to eat for the last 3 days, even just sitting here, kind of the miracle of these machines and the amount of lymph and circulation that they move, you will become more flexible, whether you are doing something specifically to improve your flexibility or not. It loosens you up. It warms up the muscles. It oxygenates your body more rapidly through these micro movements. All of my sessions are also, I kind of assume everybody's starting from scratch. My approach is different. I prefer working with faster speeds and closer feet. There's two things that you control in oscillating movement: the speed or the program that you're using, and the intensity. There's been a lot of chats about intensity and what's more intense. And in my experience, especially with a lot of medical issues, wide feet and slow speeds are more choppy and less tolerable than a mid to higher speed with a closer foot position. The reason for that, you're moving more or less. It's the distance of your feet, a term called amplitude we just don't talk enough about. So if today throughout the course of the session, something's really, really tight or it's not comfortable, it's painful, you're dealing with chronic issues, you're always in control. It does not matter what speed, but instinctively we run for the remote or we try turning it down. If you're wide, bring your feet closer to the center, and that changes how much you're moving. The wider you are, the more impact. You've got that jogging mark. It means something. It doesn't mean you're getting more benefit. It means you're getting more impact. So for those of you that have spasticity or medical issues, it means how far those muscles are having to contract and expand. So if you're really, really tight, you want to start with a closer foot position. So the first one, I was doing some leg lifts seated last week, but I love the variation on this. We're going to start with a seated calf stretch. For anybody dealing with plantar fasciitis, neuropathy, sciatic, any of these lower body issues, it's a good idea to keep those calves flexible. You want to keep them strong for the blood and the lymph return. All we're going to do is lift, and we're going to pull those toes towards us, and you can feel a nice stretch right up under the backside of the knee. If you want a little bit more strength, lift up a little bit. And we're going to hold this about 3 to 5 seconds. Take a break. Going to do the other side. Many of the things that I'm doing today are not my moves. These are seated stretches. So if you look up best seated stretches for blah, blah, it depends on what you're looking to target. There's lots of yoga, chair yoga, and all these different moves. Some of these stretches are really great to just incorporate in a seated position on your vibration plate. So this one we're stretching, we're lifting, and this one's getting all this recovery and love and attention. And then we're going to put the other foot back down. We're going to lift this one. This one's doing the work. It's stretching, it's lifting. Oh, and the other one's getting a nice little pit stop, little break. So this is a good way if you're also working with deficiencies on one side. So you got a bad hip or a recovery side. We're not really bearing our own weight. So this is a good way to keep the good side loose and limber, but start introducing the compromised or the weaker side and start improving it as well. So I would do on this one 3 to 5 reps per side, depending on you. A little variation on this one, if you're tight in the shins, I had a comment just before I went live that I hope I answered, and you got. Someone was complaining that there's all this pain and tightness in the front of my shins. Very commonly when we're standing on the plate, and even this one to a degree, the point of contact is the heel. So while you're sitting here, just try this little experiment. If you come up on the toes, just slightly, you'll feel there is no movement up other than the ankles and the shins shaking a bit. If you put one heel down, all of a sudden you feel the energy transfer. So that's your point of contact is the heel. Sometimes the body's lazy, so it's always trying to find an easier path, and it'll shift the weight more towards the balls of the toes, and that's where the shins and the knees and the front of the thighs to a degree are having to bear the movement. So try and keep those heels planted in these seated exercises. The next one I want to show you is a variation on the one we just did. I did do it last week as well, but a lot of people keep asking, how do I fix my sciatic or my plantar fasciitis? And they're kind of related. Sometimes if you have both, this is a good one. With plantar fasciitis, you want to stretch that calf. That's an important exercise. You may want to add a pool noodle and just do some foot massage. I do that as well. But to get into the sciatic, there's an add-on that we do with this one. So the first part, we're stretching the calf as we just did, calf. The next one, we're going to we want to have a good posture, good core, solid core when we're doing this. We're going to lift and look back at the same time. Hold, 2. If you can't hold for 3 seconds, that's fine. And relax. Of course, yes, you have to do the other side. We're going to lift, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is one I do commonly just sitting in my chair because, I'm starting to feel the tension and I just don't sit proper. I'm probably never sat in a proper chair in my life or stuck with the same one long enough to find out. So this is a good one to do kind of whenever you need. But by adding the plate, like I say, it gives that leg that's not doing the component, the short little recovery boost, that lymph and circulation while you're doing the other side. Then we switch off. It's a great way to do some of these seated stretches. One more variation to get more into the hips. A lot of you are dealing with hip tightness, hip looseness. They're prolapsing outward, inward. There's all these things that we're dealing with in today's world. So this one, if flexibility allows, is another one that's a very common seated stretch a lot of my chiros and physios are doing. We're going to take one leg, we're going to lift it up, and we're going to rest it just above the knee on the thigh. You want your foot hanging freely, so you're resting it on this area, not cramping it all up on your ankle. If you're looking like this, you're not flexible enough to do this one yet, and wait till I get to the next move. So just relax this one here. You want a nice straight core. Common mistake when we're leaning forward, touching our toes, doing these types of stretches is we go like this. We become a limp noodle and our slouch comes in and we think we're stretching. You want that spine nice and straight, and you're going to push the chest forward. And if you're doing this correctly, you're going to start feeling this screaming pain in the glute attaching into the thigh. You'll feel it. And if you want to get a little bit more into the hips, add a hand on that knee and just apply a little pressure. Hold, 2, 3, release, and sit back up. Yes, we got to do the other side. So we're going to lift this one. We're resting it on the lower part of the calf more than the ankle, if that makes sense. This leg is nice and straight. We're going to lean forward at the chest till we feel that basic stretch right there at the bottom of the butt cheek. Then we're going to take that hand, push. This is my favorite stretch of all time. If I had to pick one, you can do this one seated. You can do this one standing on the machine if you got good balance. You can also do this one laying on your back in bed at night. So you're laying on your back and pulling your leg towards you. But it's a really good one. I get a lot of sciatic issues, and even the sciatic stretch helps, but it doesn't get as deep as this one does. So, I'm absolutely worse on the left side where my bad knee is. But sometimes the issues are more, sometimes you got a bad hip or you got a bad knee or a bad ankle, and it's not necessarily that joint or that area itself. Sometimes it's the compensation that it's having to do for something else going up and down the leg. So make sure that you're stretching the entire leg in some way if you have issues anywhere on the leg, just as a preventative, if anything. So that's my favorite bar none if I do any stretch. The very last one I want to do, we've been doing a lot of leaning forward. We do a lot of this. We look like this a lot. I want to get a nice stretch in the arch of our back between the blades before we stand up. And I've got a couple of tools. So I've got the smallest yoga swirl ring, and if you do not have, you should buy this set if you don't have it. I use it for lots of different things. For that reason, they don't fly all over the place. If you don't have, the backup is a ball, but we're going to take that. If you have a chair with a back like I do, if not, you can do this at your kitchen chair just on its own. But you wedge the ring in there, and it kind of gets right in the small of the back, and then I just lean, stretch. Do whatever you like to do. Open up those shoulder blades. Lean forward. Lean back. It's a really nice way to open up the back, give it a nice little stretch before we get to the next stuff. And again, these are all things I would love it in a perfect world if you're all, within 2 feet of a vibration machine all day long and can use your plate. Because it really does make the exercise more beneficial, and it substantially reduces the time that you have to do this stuff. So you're going to get the relief quicker. So we're going to move to some, one more. I was playing with today. Hamstrings. I was dealing with a lot of tight hamstrings this week. And this one I saw as a seated stretch, and I thought it was awesome. For those of you that are able to do this, or for my care providers out there. So I do a lot of work with my care providers, my therapists, sit to stand, using this plate to increase the effectiveness of the work they're doing. This one is a great way to stretch the hamstrings, keep yourself stable if mobility is an issue, and you can assist in the stretch. But I've got another bar stool in front of me here where I'm just going to lean forward. Again, we're pushing forward with that chest. We're not just arching like a cat. Push forward with that chest, and it's a wonderful stretch all the way up the back of that hamstring, the knee, and if you pull the toes, you're going to get the calf at the same time. So this is just a good way to work on it without, maybe physically you don't have the strength to hold it up here or get down and do some more direct positions. Maybe standing on it isn't for you yet. This is a great way to get into this, and I would say 2 to 3 reps on this one. This is a pretty good stretch if you're doing some of the other ones first. And if you have 2 stools in which to do this. If at home you don't have the bar stool arrangement, you could do this one seated with a couple of kitchen chairs. It's worth experimenting if you're working with spasticity or tension of any kind in those hamstrings. So I love that one. So now we're going to move to some standing. I'm going to get my chair out of the way here. And the first one we're going to move to is kind of a move, but I want to add some shoulder blade and some upper body work. So what we're going to do on this one, same rules apply. I want you guys at a mid-speed range with your feet closer to the center or hip width apart. Think functional. We're not doing taekwondo or wide squats here. We're stretching. So I want your feet about hip width apart. Knees are always slightly bent. There is no harm to the movement that you feel in your head, but some people like it and some people don't. For this one, knees are slightly bent. The first part of the move is we're going to do our pelvic tilts, which is going to warm us up for some toe touches and getting down on the ground and some other things. The next thing we're going to do, it depends what you call it. On the internet, a few people called it the goalpost, but I want your forearms up in a 90-degree angle, and we're going to, as we go back, we're going to go with our arms and open up at the same time. So back, we're going to stretch those shoulder blades, hold, 2, 3, come forward. You look like this. You look like a goalpost. And I don't want you, try and keep your arms nice and straight, and it's like you're trying to touch those shoulder blades together. So forward, almost like we're doing a standing cat-cow, and back. 2, 3. I like putting a mirror or something in front of me so I can keep an eye on my lines, make sure I'm not shifting my weight to my bad leg or my good leg. This is a really good exercise just to open up those shoulder blades. Okay. You could do other variations. If there's anything you're doing now, the point is experiment. There's probably a few things you're doing now that you like to do and you enjoy doing. The plate's just going to bring more benefit to the equation. My next favorite one, we're going to do a variation on a standing cat-cow. I've left this one bar stool here. We're going to put our hands on it. Our knees are slightly bent. And we're going to push up like a cat, like you're a puppet and someone's pulling your string up to the ceiling, tucking the pelvis forward, make sure we're breathing. Then we're going to go the other way. Pelvis is back. Our knees are still slightly bent. It's like we're trying to touch our tailbone to the back of our head. Come back up. Depending on your height and the height of your stool, you might find you're too tall. I'm too tall for this stool, but you want to be 90-degree or better. I'm a little low here. But experiment. See what variation works best for you. We're all different heights. Where we bend in half is usually different, our leg length. So experiment with what feels good for you. You know where your areas of tension are. You know what you want to de-stress and get rid of. Okay? And back up. Okay? The next progression on this one is we're going to do a toe touch. So for those of you that have never touched your toes on the machine, and this is a scary thing, just an example of how effective these machines are, flexibility. A toe touch is one before I had a clue and had the experience with all the chronic issues that I do nowadays. For those that were willing, we do a simple toe touch, and I would measure where they were on the floor before, and then after they did a minute on the machine, and then we would touch the toes again. And 99 out of 100 times, there would be a substantial gain, and some people even touching their toes for the first time in a long time. So if you are fearful in touching your toes, it's nice to have a little stool here just to give you, something to hang on to. With this one, once you kind of get past 90-degree, feel free to lock the legs. We're not doing this for 10 minutes, but it does give you so much better of a stretch. Just let your body hang at the hips. Okay. We're going to roll back up like a cat. Those knees are slightly bent. If some of you are still standing there, there's no way, Debbie, that's too scary. You can do this one a couple of ways. If you turn yourself a quarter turn sideways, so you're facing the lengthways of the machine, start with your heels dead in the center. I said earlier on in the session that the heels are what drives the movement. So when you're standing sideways on your machine, and sometimes there's variations that I'll do this on, it's where your heel is that decides how much you're moving. So if you're all the way on the back, it's pushing you from the heels forward. I want you starting with your heels in the middle. If you're not stable, but you're trying to do this more from a standing perspective, and so the heels are in the center, the toes are going out this way, you feel a slight lift at the ankles, okay? So you're not as wobbly. Stool is here to hang on to. Whether you are right or left-handed, this seems like a crazy thing, but have it on your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, have this on your right side. If you're left-handed, have it on your left side. Because trust me, if you go wobbling, it's that dominant hand that goes looking for something, not the left. So I'm right-handed, so I always have mine on the right side. Okay, and then you've got something to hang on to. Whether you need it or not, sometimes it's just a mental thing, okay? If you're working with clients, patients, you've got all kinds of mobility things, or you can serve as the person assisting. But it's a good idea sometimes, especially if you're dealing with vertigo, things like that, where we're maybe not stable for other reasons. Standing sideways is a good way to use the plate before turning this way and getting more functional. It's a little milder. Experiment with that one. Okay. That one I did. So that was touching the toes. Next one. We're going to move on to some seated exercises. So my issues primarily, if I were to complain, it's the neck and the shoulders. As it is for most women, I spend too much time doing this, sitting at a desk that's too high or too low. So a lot of mine is the shoulder blade. So I do like to sit on it for the sciatic and my hips. But while I never do one thing. I'm always trying to combine things. So when I'm sitting on the machine, I like to sit with the controls in front of me. When you're sitting on the machine, a high speed is generally quite comfortable. It's not like when you're standing and bearing weight. Now, if you're not a big fan of the head movement, just lean slightly forward. The taller you sit with a straight spine, the more it's going to travel up and hit you in the head. It's not harmful, but it does take some getting used to. And if you've already got tension and stress here, you tend to guard and protect, and it amplifies the shake because you're rigid. So just lean forward until you kind of get used to it. We're going to, in this instance, do another variation of stretching the hamstrings and the calves all at once, is we're going to reach for the toes. So while we're sitting here and we're working the cellulite and we're doing Kegels maybe because we want to improve our pelvic floor, You can add a stretch to this. You've seen me do this in lots of my sessions. So we're going to reach for the toes, pushing with the chest. You don't need to lift your head or drop it substantially. Just a nice straight line on the spine and the head. Roll back up. And I would love to see 3 to 5 reps of this one. Okay. Make sure you're breathing. That's a really good one to do, especially if you're working with littler users, pediatric users, where we're using the plate while seated on it. We're getting all those micro movements directly into the skin. We're flushing it with lymph and circulation. But while adding our stretch, I'll give you an example. Some of my families, if you're going, 20, 30 minutes a night of massaging your kids' legs just so they can get a good night's sleep, you might only need to do this for 2 to 3 minutes. So that this is something that's going to save a lot of our caregivers out there mucho time. So these are just some very simple things that not only for your patients, the people you're caring for, but for you as the caregivers yourselves, your back, your shoulders. We all have issues when whether we're physical or not. Either we're too physical or we're not physical enough, or maybe we overworked out at the gym. There's always a reason we got to do stretching and use our machine. So that was just a couple of variations on that one. Any of the variations that I did where you're sitting on the machine, the goal, reaching behind, you've seen me do some of these, whether you're sitting on the machine, standing on the machine, or seated on a stool is very much more about you and your range of motion. For the feel-good stuff, I encourage you to do these types of things often. If you're dealing with chronic symptoms and using your plate or some of these exercises for symptom relief, you really only need a minute or two per position to target what you're trying to target. It's not a big 10, 15-minute thing all the time. My machine time running today was one full spiel and a few more minutes. So I was about 13, 14 minutes with all my talking. But any of these stretches, I would say if you're doing 3 to 5 reps, the one exception with the deep hamstring, I shortened that one up a little bit based on my needs. But sometimes it's not a matter of just doing it once a day. Maybe those symptoms are cropping up and you want to do a couple of sessions where it's 2 to 3 minutes of just targeting. Let your body drive when you need a fix. This isn't like doing a workout. If you're doing a workout and you're truly pushing yourself to fatigue, yes, I would, probably take a day off and do some recovery or work other body parts. But when it comes to stretching, the feel-good stuff, the massage, some of that is a vital part of many of my clients' self-care. So it's hard for me to, when people say, well, how long a day can I do all these stretches? It really depends. You know your body, you got to start paying attention to it. And for the exercise, if you're doing, whether you're doing the work and whether you're pushing to fatigue or not. There is a difference in how you're applying just the tool of the plate. I hope that makes sense. I'm blinded by all the lights here. So I'm going to turn one off and I'm going to come talk to you a little bit further. And I want you to ask me your questions now. So again, the big message is, as I always say, you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. So I don't have a book of every stretch and every variation ever done on the human body. But I have learned over the years, what works best for me. You've probably got a few that you're doing on a regular basis. Use your plates if you have them to ramp up the effectiveness of those same exercises. Even with your stretches, sometimes you get to a point where if you're doing the same thing all the time, you're just maintaining. You notice if you're not doing it because the tension or the range reduces, things like that. But if you're just, go habitually doing the same thing all the time, are you improving? So sometimes people go, oh, I can't do less time. Well, why can't you do less time? You're incorporating a tool that makes it more effective. So we measure often, I worked out for a half hour today and we think we got to go longer and longer to get better results. No, sometimes you just got to change up what you're doing and make that time more effective. So if you are doing stretches regularly and you're finding, you're not getting any worse, but you're not seeing the results you initially had started with, try incorporating some of those on your plate, reducing the time, and I think you'll see some more benefits in the long run. Okay, I got a few questions here. Let me go up to the top. Hello from Virginia Beach. Hello, Carol. Hello, Sue. Hello, Robin. Nice to see you. Sue again. Yes, you can see and hear me. Thank you guys for letting me know that. I have Mitza from Arizona. Hello. Love no shoes. It's a personal choice, but I'm very vocal about my choices and opinionated like most women. Sue, replying to Sue, it's the snow comment. It's almost gone. Almost gone, but not quite. Hey, Deb, Angela from London. Hi, Angela. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us. Angela is a new Life Pro owner in Ontario, Canada. And so I dropped her a note about the session today. Make sure that for those of you that are joining me through the main public page, the Life Pro page, or if you're here from YouTube or Amazon or any of the other places this streams, if you're not a member of the VIP group, you should be. It's great having a community of opinions there. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but there's no right or wrong way to use any of these tools because each of you are unique and different. And sometimes just, I never thought about using it that way. I've been doing this 18 years and still once, twice a month, somebody brings something to my attention. I'm like, I never thought of that. So you're only limited by your imagination and your range of motion. The VIP group is great, not only for idea sharing, but you're going to get kind of the heads up if anything new is coming out or any contests and things like that. So make sure that you request to join and register your products for your warranty if you haven't gotten those done either. What happened? Tom Peking in Oregon. Hi, Tom. Hope you had a good Easter. Facebook user, I had hip surgery 2 years ago. When I fell and broke it, the surgeon pinned the bone and made my legs uneven. Now my right knee is caving in towards the leg that's affected. Plus I have compression in my lower back, lots of pain, especially the knee. So I'm going to assume that you have a vibration plate. The difference in height, it's one I got to work with a lot of my little kids too. But the collapsing of the knee, the prolapse, this is a good add-on. So when I was talking about this in my arch of my back, very commonly in my standing positions, this is just a playground ball with a little bit of air out of it, and depending on your height. So when you're standing hip width apart, we're going to put this just above the knees, and it stops that knee from any further. You might find when you're correcting your positioning, especially if your squats have looked more like this for the last little while, you might go through some soreness and some pain. And when you're using this new shaky machine and you're working out and you're doing your thing and you have chronic issues or pain, everybody, the machine hurt me. No, it did something wrong. No, a lot of times you're dealing with all this chronic pain all the time, guys. You forget what the exercise pain feels like. You forget what a good workout feels like because you've never been able to get your muscles to that point. But when you get your machine, you crank it up to top speed and you go 15 minutes and you wonder why you're sore the next day. You over-exercised because you went the full time with your wide feet. That's why. That may not apply to everybody, but that applies to most of you. So this is a good way to correct that. This is what the ring looks like. And it just really helps that alignment and it'll stop that knee from collapsing inward. But I caution you might notice a little ache or soreness in the hip because we're correcting. Okay, so you're gonna feel those muscles have been worked. If you're super sore the next day, you went too long. And now, if you're dealing with a lot of the chronic issues I talk about, part of the reason I do this whole faster speed and closer feet thing, most people don't understand how vibration machine works, let alone that there's different kinds that have completely different settings. So you can't compare apples to oranges to cherries and bananas. It's understanding on every plate, there's different movement styles. I always do oscillating because it's the most functional for the gains, the balance, a lot of the stuff that I want to do. It's something all of Life Pro's models offers, but there's two factors. There's that amplitude, which is really important to understand, and the speed or the frequency. It's a marriage between the two that creates how intense or how weak it feels. I hope that makes sense. Try that out, Facebook user, and let me know if that's a good little correct. If you don't have a ball or you don't have the yoga rings, a rolled up, nice, thick, fluffy bath towel, roll it up into like a donut, just to keep that knee while you're standing on the plate, and bring your feet closer. Work with the faster speed, the slow, choppy speeds when you're dealing with weak joints or joint replacements or those type of things where the areas become deconditioned. The slow speeds we think are going to start slow. But the slow speeds on a vibration machine are like your Bosu ball and rebounder speeds. They're very choppy, very destabilizing, but your body's got the most time to guard and protect, and it will. So it's going to try and do all the bad positioning and it wants to fight back. If you get her up to more of a mid speed and sacrifice some of that foot distance, not only are you going to get more done in less time, but it's going to feel more soothing, more relaxing, less wobbly, especially if you're dealing with some chronic issues after that. But 2 years out, there's no reason you can't use a machine. It's just a matter of looking at where you're physically at, and most people overdo it in time and how wide they stand starting out. Carol, do you have a good stretch for the knees? The sciatic one I did is my favorite stretch for the knee. I have bad knee issues, and this is not a knee stretch by any means, but here's what I have: a bad knee. And people who have bad knees or bad, you always figure out your own fix. When I'm on the machine, I'll sit there and rub my knees. It sounds, but I mean, I'm rubbing them hard. The one stretch I do like when the seated one I did where I do the figure 4, you'll get a good stretch on the knee there. Another one that you can do, I don't know where my pull noodle is from. I did a session this morning. Oh, here. If you have the range of motion to get down on the ground, I want to make sure, yeah, you can see me doing this. For the knees are hard to stretch. If you have some moves that you're doing now and you can translate them to the machine somehow, go for it. But I like to wedge a chopped up pull noodle under the knees. It helps the vibration kind of get up in the back of the knee because it does not lay flat on the machine. And I do lifts and stretch this way and point. Okay, and then I might even roll if I wanted to get real crazy. That's another whole video for another day. But if you got the range of motion to get down, this is a good way just to target the nooks and the crannies of the knee, the arches of the feet, the ankles. You're only limited by your imagination. But if you can't get down on the ground, this is the one I was talking about. So you're seated like this. This is a good one I like, and I feel it helps my knees. I don't think it's more of a thigh stretch, if I were to say. I hope that gave you some ideas. What about bad knees? It feels like the vibration aggravates it. If it's aggravating your knees, Sue, and I'm not trying to deflect when I say this, but it's how you're using it. So if it's, in my experience, if it's aggravating even the worst of joints, bone on bone, guys, like I deal with really severe stuff on these machines. You're going too long, too slow, and too wide. And what combination of that, I don't know, but it's you feel so good when you're using the machine and it gives you energy and takes your pain away, but sometimes you pay for it after. I would say the first thing to do, Sue, is make sure that the feet are no more than hip width apart. Think functional, and the knees are taking the brunt if you're going wider. So hip width apart. I would like you to try a mid speed. If you find that's too aggressive, bring the feet a little bit closer and just reduce your time. If you're just starting out, I know the machine presets for 10 minutes, but over time, as you guys become conditioned to these machines, yeah, you want to do 10, 15 minutes. But for that first week or two, when you're first starting out, if you haven't been off the couch in 20 years, you haven't been around the block more than twice in the last year, what are you doing going full time, full intensity, and wondering why you're sore the next day? I'm not saying that's everybody, but it does. It exhilarates you and makes you feel good when you're using the machine. So it's easy to overdo it. And those are the 3 different ways that you can overdo it. So just try making a little adjustment and reduce the time, the feet, and try a higher speed. If you're pushing yourself in the knees and we're doing things like we're maybe going too deep in our squats, or I like to see you pushing yourself. But one thing too, Sue, with the knees, I find, don't move. If you're doing like squats and lunges, hold static positions. You're going to die like way faster because the body wants to move. But sometimes moving, the technique goes out the window and we're not really holding good posture and good form. But sometimes we go really fast, because we think we need cardio and we got to be sweating. Just hold yourself still and burn those muscles out in the legs. Keep those heels planted. Don't worry about the dynamic movement. I think you'll find it's just as effective and much less demanding on the knees and the hips too, if that's an issue. Usually if you got knee issues, you got hip issues or back. It's all a relationship. I hope that makes sense, Sue. This was a great way to end the day. Thank you so much. Whether you do all of these things or you just take 1 or 2 away, the thing about stretching and the wellness and the self-care aspects of these machines is, and this is where it's impossible. And I know Joel and everybody that supports Life Pro goes, oh, she said to use it as much as you want. I really do. There's nothing really out there that says you can't use your machine but there's no limit on saying how long you can go for a run or a jog either. You got to use common sense. You want this thing to last. So no, I don't want you using it 6, 7 hours. But if you're dealing with chronic issues and it's disturbing your quality of life, you can use it for a couple minutes whenever you want. That's no different than, well, how many times can I do this today or this? It depends on you. Just don't overdo it when you're doing it. Keep it to 2 to 3 minutes. Think more spot treatment and less workout. It's more exciting. I'm going to go do my spot treatment. It sounds more like you're going to the spa too. It's a mental thing. Workout's like so demotivating. It's like a negative word. There should be a negative word dictionary, and that would be under the W's. I'd love to try the seated stretches, but getting up again will be debatable. Try them seated on the stool first, Angela. And if there's any seated exercises you guys are doing, stretches, if you're looking for some, go to Google and just invest in a good stool to learn them on. Range of motion and getting down on the ground. It is nice to get down on the ground, but that's going to be your squats. So you're not going to get down on the ground by standing there longer and longer. You need to improve that range. So you need to work on the squats and your flexibility to get down on the ground. It's not the getting down, it's the getting up. That's always the bigger challenge. I think I was too wide and too slow, like speed 20. So it depends on what model you have. So if you have a Rumblex, which is like 60, bring it up to 30 or 40. If you're working with a Waver or a Mini, try 50, 60, but bring the feet closer and it feels soothing. It feels nicer. You can go all the way up to the top, but you'll find there's a relationship with, as you go faster, it's more tolerant. You might need to sacrifice some foot distance. And that's why sometimes, people say to me, oh no, I never get past like the starting speeds, because you've never experimented. We're not kids anymore, and you guys need to be curious. Always stay curious. When you were on the teeter-totter, everybody tried being out on the end, and then you'd want to be the friend that sat in the middle, or you'd wait. We understand how a teeter-totter works, but when we stand on this machine, all those childhood lessons are forgot. So you're always in control is why I say that. I have horrible heel pain on my left heel. Anything I can try. You know what? I don't know root cause. There's a lot of reasons your heel could be hurting. Is this something that just started by using the machine? Is this something that was a result of, something you've been dealing with 20 years? My gut, and this is horrible because all of our experience is based on our previous experience, right? So anytime somebody says I had really bad heel pain, usually it's some diabetic that didn't have any feeling until I did my wizardry magic on the machine, and all of a sudden they're full of heel spurs and I didn't know about it. So if you got a nagging pain and it's like you're walking on glass, and it's not just when you're on the machine, it's like an all the time thing. Heel spurs are something I'm just seeing more and more, and heel spurs can develop for a number of reasons. But if you're dealing with neuropathy, sometimes your body gives you neuropathy because it's trying to shut off those signals and it doesn't want to feel the pain. Well, Debbie's pretty good at dealing with neuropathy on the machines, and you start feeling again, it's a good thing. But sometimes we're uncovering issues that, didn't present because you simply couldn't feel them before. So if it's really, really painful and it's recent on the machine, I would say one of two things. There's something there. And to me, my machines, they are the diagnostic equipment. I'm not a doctor, but they point out deficiencies because you can get your muscles and your body to a point of exercise that sometimes you couldn't have without the machine because the knees gave out or the lungs. So that you can push your body a little further. The machines give you the ability to get more done in less time. So if you're having heel issues, it's either something's going on there already, hairline fracture, spurs, something like that. Maybe you're compensating. So if there's something wrong with the other side and you're putting more emphasis or weight on that heel and it's just it's just sore, that might be related due sometimes to the surface of your machine. There is no universal surface. Some people want more grip, some want less, some want markers. So if it's the surface of the machine, maybe there's just a ledge there that part of the heel's hitting, and it's over time causing some aggravation. Put on some thick socks or put a yoga mat on to just give you a little cushion. And if you're a new user, maybe you're just overdoing it and going a little long. But usually if it's specific, if it's not both heels and there's something on one side, to me, your body's saying there's something else going on there, and keep an eye on it. If it's just when it's on the machine or happening towards the end of your session, it's bringing something to the surface that you're not pushing yourself as far throughout the course of your day to have those come up in your day to day. But if it's something you've been dealing with a really, really long time and the machine is flaring it up, give me some feedback and tag me at Debbie with a Y on that. I got to know how the story ends. So you bring up this issue with the heel. I got to know what we're dealing with now. Jen Stewart, you look amazing tonight. Hair looks great. Oh, Jenny, nice to see you. Thank you. You guys, I pumped up my muscles before I got on camera. I was doing some push-ups. I'll admit it. Do a couple push-ups and you look more muscly before you go on Life Pro Lives. And Arnika, I missed your question. There's a few in here. Let me see. Arnika, how does vibration actually physically work to reduce post-op swelling? Depends on the post-op, but it's the movement of lymph for sure. For sure, it really helps expedite that recovery and the increase in blood flow. So blood flow kind of happens naturally on its own, but when you're in a post-surgery or a recovery or an injury situation where you're not moving as much, when we move, lymph moves. Our physical movement is the pump for our lymph. So if you're not moving, depending on where you're at in your post-recovery seated, if you've got lots pulling in the legs or you're just sitting, it really helps the return if you're doing too much time seated. If you're dealing with a different body part, more specific, and there's been compromises, maybe you've had some lymph nodes or some scar tissue, and it's moving to other areas. So for example, I have a question. I don't know that I've answered it in my group yet. You're gaining fluid, you're getting larger. That can also be a sign of overdoing it when you're first starting out. If you've been inactive for a huge period of time and your lymph is thick and sluggish and it's got blockages and you're moving all this lymph, the areas that have good return are going to do their job, but you may find it's pooling or your body doesn't have the ability to dissipate the amount of movement that you're creating. So if you're finding that you're increasing in inches or pounds or you're retaining fluids when you started using your vibration plate, this may be something that's common to you when you start moving again, generally, whether it's walking, aquasize, but something's telling me you're pushing more lymph than your body is able to distribute and dissipate. So back off on time, intensity. If you're really, really wide with your feet, more does not mean more benefit, especially if you're dealing with compromised lymphatics. And post-surgery, maybe you didn't have lymphatic issues, but if you've had surgery, there's trauma, there could be things that are compromised. So just be conservative. I would prefer in a post-surgery situation, you use it more often in shorter doses, especially if you're seeing pooling accumulate. But it's not uncommon. And I see it with my gym goers more than my chronic users. I see my gym goers come in and they get pissed off at me because the abs aren't popping or they're larger. If you're massaging the crap out of yourself for 10, 20, 30 minutes a day and you're trying to define yourself, you're moving a lot of surface lymph and total body lymph. And you may go through a short period where there's a short gain and then a release until your lymphatic system gets more effective at expediting all that. And common sense, drink your water, make sure that you're not starving your body of salt. And, there's a lot of things we listen to, but we don't research. And all of you are unique. So the dietary things will come in. You're increasing activity. What are you doing nutritionally or where else in your life, your sleep, all these other things to support that increase in activity. I hope that makes sense and that answers your question, Arnika. If it doesn't, tag me at Debbie with a Y. And I did a video, I'm thinking 2 months ago on pre and post surgery. If you guys are looking for topics, anytime that I look up, Debbie, have you done a topic on blah, blah, blah? I'm not as organized as Roseanne and made a spreadsheet. I do so many lives in different areas, but do a search, go into the search menu and type Debbie with a Y surgery or Debbie with a Y post-surgery, pre-surgery. And 9 times out of 10, there's going to be something that comes up. I do all the rare disease days. I do all those things. So there's usually something I've talked about. Because you're unique, even if you're dealing with a rare disease. There's really nothing I haven't dealt with on the machines and probably done a session, if not 2 or 3 on. So use that search function, guys. I have horrible heel pain on my left heel. Anything I can try? I think I answered that. If I didn't, let me know. We'll try the noodle. I love the noodle, Carol. I go through them like crazy. And cut one lengthways too. Sometimes you only need half a noodle. Depends on the area you're trying to wedge it in. Really want to try this after being bedridden for too many years. Too many health conditions need to be addressed. Wanted to understand, how does this differ from power plate? Power plate is a different movement style. I'm actually also certified in vertical technology. Vertical technology moves different and it has its place. It also has a healthy amount of research. The problem with the vibration machine industry is for the 20 years I've been doing this, it's this kind of machine is better than that machine. And it's no, there's differences. And in my experience, and if you're a power plate rep, we can talk about this all day long. I don't like talking brand specific, but power plate is a very common brand. If you are looking at their higher end models, you're getting, some good equipment. I'm not a big fan of their home machine. For the price, you're getting much less G-force than what you're spending $200 on with Life Pro. I'm not going to get into the G-force chat today. I've done a session, so search that one. But machines create a G-force based on the combination of the speed that you're using, the frequency, and the distance. And characteristically, a power plate is a vertical machine. Vertical machines have much higher frequencies. They move much faster, but they have very low amplitudes. A machine can only move so far, so fast, and same with your body and your muscles. Oscillating plates, the more natural movement is preferred. If I lined up 100 people and put them on my power plates back in the day were more like $12,000. But if I put you by the best power plate I had and the best oscillating plate, which also was a $12,000 investment, more people would be lining up at the oscillating. It more naturally mimics how we move, and there's less resonance on the vibration going to the head. So it has its place. When it boils down to it, it really is what you prefer using. If you had the opportunity to try a really high energy vertical plate next to an oscillating plate, you would likely, in my opinion, prefer. I started in vertical for the first 3 years of my life. I thought that's what it was about. That's where it all came from. Mine was very German built, very loud and very powerful. But over time, as I diversified into both movement styles, which you kind of have to have a basis of understanding, oscillatings have lower frequencies, but they have much greater amplitude values. And in my opinion, they offer an advantage for the balance and the stability piece. I work with so many chronic issues where my seniors can't bend the knees enough starting out. The vertical plates are a lot more taxing on the head. I enjoy them for direct applications, for massage. If you're exercising, there's certainly research to support them, but you've really got to understand that there's a difference between the power plate at the top of the price list and the home machine is one frequency, one amplitude. After a period of time, all you really can do is go longer and longer. You're paying for a name, in my opinion. You're by far better off investing in an oscillating technology, especially if you've got a limited budget and if you have any sensitivities at all. If you're not working with a trainer, the big advantage of working with a company like Life Pro is you get access to people like me and a page where you can get support. So if you are considering other products, sometimes it's not the machine itself, it's what you're using it for. Where, power plate outside of the home model, you're not going to be moving it in front of the TV or putting it by the kitchen island like I suggest. So sometimes picking a machine isn't about the research and the science. What's going to fit best into your lifestyle. I want you using it regularly. So picture what you would find yourself using regularly and what your power plate or what your pocketbook presents. If there's any studies or any countering, anytime another company is like bashing the competition, or if they are saying anything negatively, ask them to support that with some claims and some studies. And if there's anything you'd like me to look in further, by all means, just reach out and let me know. Sue, what did you say? You thought thought the speed should be for me. I have a waiver. Sue, I said mid to high. I'll never offer an absolute number because I want you to experiment and I want you to mix up from week to week as well. So I would say on your waiver, because you've got the 99 speeds, mid would be that 50 to 60 range. Play in there. And if at any time it's too intense, and sometimes that changes depending on the exercise you're doing, you might need to bring the feet closer or the hands if you're doing upper body. 50 to 60 if I were to give you a range. And if you find, Sue, or anyone with me, why I speak in ranges is, we tend to be creatures of habit. So you're doing the same moves all the time, and that's good. I want you using these machines consistently. So do things you enjoy and you find you're getting benefit from. And then just mix up the speeds from week to week, or your foot placement a little bit. Just change a dynamic of your settings versus having to look for new moves all the time. So 50 to 60 is a starting point, and it really depends on what feels good to you as things improve, Sue, and I really hope they do. Sue, you have lipedema. I don't know if you're in my group, but I have just about 14,000 followers in my fat disorders group. You're welcome to join. If you go into my profile, you'll see that I have a private group. My private groups are not free training, above and beyond for everybody to join in. If you have medical specific conditions, I do put myself out there as a resource, and I do offer one-on-ones as well. But if I do a good job in these lives at Life Pro, really my goal is I want to empower you guys. I don't want you to have to pay more for a trainer or a book. They're nice to have. I like books and I like posters because I'm still old school and like to write things down. But I try to give you the tools of how to understand and utilize your plates for your conditions through these lives. And there's, like I say, there's probably I've done several on lipedema, lymphedema. I did a couple specific this month as well. So my group is a vibration for fat disorders on that one, Sue. Life Pro replying to Arnika, please click. Oh, are you having issues, Arnika? That answer helped. I was just curious about how it helped swelling experience more after returning to work. And also, you know what I didn't ask, Arnika, is if you're doing anything else. Sometimes if we've had a big change in our life, we've recovered from surgery, we've had a baby, we got a new job, we're starting a new diet, we tend to do other things. And if it's easy to overdo it, not just that we think of just the one thing, though we think of just the activity, but if you're implementing other changes, more water, better sleep, sometimes your body goes through this, whoa. And if you've got a lot of lymph or a lot of toxic, lymph and our fat, as well as where toxins are stored. And if we're not moving lymph effectively, there's toxicity and detox and other things that the machines are also helping ramp up. So make sure that you're giving your body the supportive other self-care steps you need to do. But an increase in swelling is not an uncommon thing, especially if and I don't want to say you're overdoing it. You may not be. Maybe you've just got a really sluggish system where there's an area where there's blockage. Maybe give it a little extra attention. But if it's a total body thing and you've gained 8 to 10 pounds and you're pissed off at me, back it off on your time and your intensity and try doing it more frequent as a symptom. Get that lymph moving more frequently than one big long, flow session. That might be the trick. And stick with whatever change you make for a few days and modify accordingly. If you're not having any success with that, Arnika, reach back out to me and just tag me at Debbie with a Y so it doesn't get lost in the comments. Sue, you're in. That a girl. Rewatch my getting started video at the top. I go over everything I talked about here today too. So should it be making knocking noises? Your machine? No. And yes. I'm going to back up my support folks here. No, if it's making a clanging or sounds like plastics hitting or metal parts are hitting each other, no. But it is not uncommon if you're a new user and you're standing as wide as possible and you're taking on more than you're ready. You don't even realize it. Sometimes the body, like I said, it guards and protects and it fights back. So if you're doing like a standing position and you got a little bit more meat on your bones, which is an advantage when you're starting out, your body absorbs this sensation differently than if you're very thin or very low body fat, and you can tend to take on those higher speeds and wider foot placements because your body's just absorbing it differently. But if you're fighting it on top of all this, what happens is you're fighting the machine, and you might just be, resisting it too much that you're hearing it fight back, if that makes sense. So just relax, bring your feet to more like hip width apart. And if the knocking is gone, that might have been what you're doing. But if there's an issue there, escalate it to support it and get it resolved. They will absolutely look after you. Sometimes with the volume of machines and the customers that Life Pro now has, sometimes there is an issue coming out of the factory, had nothing to do. It just came over that way in the box, but they are absolutely amazing at resolving it. And be patient. It is technically the long weekend, and if any of you were shopping, there's been a big sale on this month. Be patient with them, and if you haven't heard back within a day or two, please reach back out, tag myself if need be, and I'll make sure that someone reaches back out to you. Don't go to the VIP group. Sometimes I need help with my machine, but if you're not letting the people know that can resolve it, they're people behind the scenes, and I value. I work with a lot of different equipment suppliers, and what I love about Life Pro so much is they care about their customers, and sometimes when you're in a service situation or you haven't gotten an answer back, it doesn't seem like it, but Life Pro is the only company I work with that not only has a Facebook page to support its clients, but it's got 2 of them. They really do make an effort. They don't need to bring me and Roseanne and Amber to do these videos to show you. They've already sold you their products. So I really value them for making the effort to give you support and diversity and support. There's my way, there's Roseanne's way, there's your way. There's no one way to cross the finish line. So if you haven't reached out to them, make sure that you do, and get that resolved sooner than later, Sue. If I haven't missed anybody else here, if I have, please bark at me and let me know. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining me on a holiday Monday. Hopefully I've helped you aid in digesting all those. You know what? Even if you didn't have a big meal, there's chocolate everywhere. It's like a conspiracy. Everywhere I turn, there's a dish of eggs or Buenos, and it's just one little egg. You know, I got home from Walmart today. I had to go pick up my kid. I got to do another video here shortly for Joel. And, you know, there's all these little tinfoil wrappers all over the place. I probably had about 20 of the darn things today. It's easy. Temptation. Debbie, back away. That's why I'm so wired. It's all the caffeine and the sugar. So thank you so much for joining me today, guys. If you have not done a review recently, I did drop the most recent link to the review contest, which launched yesterday. Please make sure you go in and do your reviews and enter the draw. I will see you next week. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'll find something fabulous, and I hope you learned some new tricks today. You're only limited by your imagination, your range of motion, and what your Google search can offer you nowadays. Be consistent in whatever it is that you're doing, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Have a great rest of your holiday Monday. If you're not working yet, enjoy getting back to work tomorrow.